My name is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone. I run Spainguru.es, and this is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa webinar today, Thursday, the 25th September 2025. A little bit about Spainguru. Our objective is facilitating relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain since 2014. We have wonderful reviews on Trustpilot and on Google, so you are in very good hands. You can use Spainguru.es for absolutely free. Everything is free on Spainguru. You can subscribe to our weekly newsletter that I send every Monday, where I feature top discussions and blog posts, most watched video on Spainguru's YouTube channel that has now more than 1,000 videos, almost 2,000 articles in our blog, and a big community with Facebook groups with an aggregated total of 150,000 members, from which the most relevant group for you is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group with 18,000 members as of today. I highly recommend you joining the group. And if you need expert help, of course, these are vetted partners that I have personally selected with stellar reviews. Those, of course, will be paid, but of course, this is not a service from Spainguru. This is a service that you engage with my partners. At least I recommend you to engage with immigration experts. All the immigration lawyers that I recommend are very knowledgeable about the digital nomad visa application from within Spain or from Spanish consulates abroad. And the other experts I highly recommend you engaging with is tax advisors, so that you know exactly what's going to happen tax-wise before even you take the decision to move to Spain. So those two are my recommendations. At least engage with those two experts, okay? Then you can find personally vetted financial planners, visa compliant health insurances, including for digital nomad visa if you need, medical certificates, sworn translators, okay, personally vetted. You will need those for applying for the Spanish digital nomad visa, apostille services in the USA and in the UK, and many more services like bank accounts, money transfer services, property rentals, mortgages if you plan to buy property in Spain, and so much more than 100 services that I highly recommend you checking out on Spainguru.es. Now, let's talk about the objectives of this webinar. Hopefully, by the end of it, you will understand the key changes of the digital nomad visa in 2025. Things are continuously evolving and changing, and we need to be updated. Second, step-by-step requirements and how to meet them. We're going to go through one by one, and which documents you need to supply or submit in order to apply for this visa and how to prepare them. Now, we're going to also talk about taxes and social security contributions, okay, and how the renewal process works, which is important because you need to prepare for that in advance, and how to avoid common mistakes and delays in the application process and renewal process as well. So this is the content of this webinar, described in 7 points. And first, we're going to start talking about the terminology, okay, because we're going to mention these phrases and words and jargon many times, so it's important that you understand what I am referring to. First of all, the UGE, Unidad de Grandes Empresas. This is the government office that processes the digital nomad visa applications. So if you apply from within Spain, you will apply online, but you need to prove that you are physically in Spain when you do it. And you can apply in the web platform of the UGE, okay? And we will see their decisions are quite streamlined, but still vary, and they can be a little bit erratic sometimes. Then we're going to mention apostilles. The apostille is a international certification, okay, from a group of countries that are under the Convention of The Hague. So in order to submit documents from foreign countries to Spanish authorities, they need to be legalized. If they are part of the Hague Convention, they will need to be legalized by an apostille, okay? And some countries, for example, UAE, are not part of the Hague Convention. They will have other ways to certify documents coming from UAE, for example. Now, typical documents that you need to apostille: criminal records, company certificates, birth certificates, marriage certificates if you're moving with family. Then sworn translators, traductor jurado. Okay, these are not the typical translator. Okay, these translators are certified by and only the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They give them a unique number, registration number, and they can perform sworn translations online. You just send the digital document by email, you receive the translation with a unique stamp, and those are the translations, official translations, recognized by Spanish authorities. Not all the documents need sworn translations, but many do. Okay. Then there is the A1 certificate, specifically for the UK. This is the certificate of coverage by if you're paying Social Security in the UK. Okay, that is valid in Spain as well. And different, but the same, same, but different. You have the certificate of coverage of any other country, which is also includes the United States. It's not specifically the A1, but it is also a Social Security certificate by the United States that has been started to be accepted recently. Another buzzword is autónomo. When you move to Spain as a freelancer, as a contractor, and you start working in Spain as such, you have to enroll as autónomo, okay, or 1099 in the USA. This is, let's say, the tax figure, okay, and Social Security figure, and that's the name in Spanish, okay, when you're working as a contractor, okay, and you have to pay your own taxes, pay your own Social Security, etc., etc. Then there is the padrón or empadronamiento, okay? This is the proof of address that is issued by every city hall in Spain. You need to provide a rental contract of generally at least 6 months, and they will give you a paper stating that you are living in such an address, and that it's important to obtain your residency card. 90% of cases they will ask for empadronamiento and also for the renewals. Then there is the TIE card, Tarjeta de Identidad Extranjero, or residency card, which is the plastic card with your face in it, your picture, and that card states your residency status, okay? If you have a work permit, if you don't have a work permit, and it will have the NIE number, which is the Número de Identidad Extranjero, which is just a number. NIE and TIE are different. NIE is the foreigner number, and the TIE is the plastic card, residency card, okay? Now, let's go with the updates and news in 2025 for the digital Nomad visa applications. Okay, so this visa is from 2023. It's quite new, let's say, in terms of general immigration in Spain. There are much older visa types. Okay, so this is quite new and is evolving all the time. First of all, great news for Americans or people working in America, in USA. W-2 employees, okay, so employees working for companies in the USA are now DNB eligible. They were at the beginning, then they stopped being eligible because of problems of the certificate of coverage from the Social Security in the US that was not accepted in Spain, but lately the UGE is accepting this certificate of coverage, okay? So W-2 employees of US companies working remotely from Spain can potentially be eligible for the digital Nomad visa. You will have to apply for the certificate of coverage. This is something that you need to, that needs to be started by your employer, okay, in the USA, providing certain documents and certain information, and you will finish it up and obtain the COC. And this way you will avoid having to contribute to the Spanish Social Security, right? Now, who may not qualify? Self-employed or escort owners who often don't meet the Social Security's US-based business criteria. And if you own more than 25% of the company that you're using for the application, this can trigger legal or tax issues in Spain. A little bit more about the COC, steps. Okay, first of all, you will need to gather the required information. And we're talking about the US COC or Certificate of Coverage, okay? You will have to provide full name, Social Security number, Spanish home address. It can be a residency. It can be like a home now, okay? U.S. employer's name, address, etc., etc. You will submit the application, which can be done online or by snail mail, and typically you will have to wait 4 to 8 weeks. So always have to plan ahead. If you're applying even from Spain, remember to bring all your documents before, and for that you will have to allow certain time for documents preparation, okay, and also for income preparation, okay. You will receive and verify the certificate of coverage, and then you will include it in the application, okay. More changes is that more documents will require apostilles in 2025 compared to applications in 2024, especially company certificates. There are going to be stricter checks and scrutiny for business owners to prove that there is a real activity in the companies that they're applying with, and for professional experience must now be backed by official evidence, okay, official documents. We're going to go through this later on in depth, okay, more in depth. More changes, okay, and well, something that maybe, it is clear now, but before it wasn't, is that many people, when the digital nomad visa was released by Spain, many people thought that they were going to be eligible for a special tax regime in Spain, also known as the Beckham law, okay, regardless of their work status. By work status, I'm talking about employee versus contractor, okay. The truth is that 99% of cases, the eligibility for this special tax regime only goes for employees, okay, or W2 moving to Spain, okay. And you're not eligible if you're a contractor, 1099 or autonomous, right? Now, if you're eligible, you will benefit from a flat rate, 24% tax on your income sourced only in Spain, and many other perks, like you don't have to declare your regional wealth tax, you don't have to declare your overseas assets via the 720 form, and many more things, okay? Other things that are changing in 2025 is that we've seen that UGE decisions have been quite inconsistent, erratic at best, okay? So be prepared to adapt, be prepared to reapply, apply with having enough time, because you need to apply within the first 90 days that you are in Spain. You can't be irregular in a way. You cannot be out of days and apply, okay? So always apply very, very quickly. The moment you set foot in Spain, you apply online, then receive the application, the decision, and if you get denied, then work on your application and apply again, okay? Don't appeal. We're going to talk about that. Renewals are now treated nearly the same as new applications, so you will have to be very meticulous, very organized, and plan ahead for the renewals, okay? And also, if you're staying longer in Spain, you have to pay attention to how you develop the strategy to stay longer with uninterrupted residency and health coverage in Spain to meet all the requirements for other types of residencies. Let's talk about apostilles and legalizations. What is required now? Okay, before only a few documents needed apostilles, but now company registration certificates must be apostilled. Tax or social security reports used as work proof will require an apostille. Marriage, if you're moving with spouses or kids, birth and civil partnership, in case you're not married but you have a legal partnership, you will require certificates, official certificates, and they will require apostilles issued by the authorities that are issuing those certificates. For example, if you got married in California, well, state apostille from the state of California. If you got married in Cyprus, apostille by the Cyprus authorities. And if they're not in Spanish, they will require sworn translation into Spanish, right? Remember that for these certificates, you will definitely need sworn translations. Therefore, you need to use sworn translators that you can find on Spainguru.es, okay? So be very careful about this, because the timeframes vary depending on the certificate and the jurisdiction where you are obtaining the certificate and the apostilles, okay? So police background checks, FBI background checks, it takes very short time to get the digital copy, but then the apostille, if you do it via the $20 state of the Department of State, it could take up to 7 weeks, just the apostille, okay? You have also private apostille services that you can find on Spainguru.es that will do it in 10 days only. But what I'm trying to convey to you is that you will have to set up a project and timeframes for each one of these steps. Now, there is going to also be extra scrutiny for business owners, okay? So more questions, more documentations, more proof, okay? And you have to be very careful that everything matches, okay? Authorities will not require proof that your company is active and legitimate, okay? Many, certain people in the past have used off-the-shelf or inactive companies, okay, to apply for this visa, and now they're likely to be rejected. Okay, so you will have to provide likely company tax returns, invoices, contracts, proof of business expenses or investment, evidence of clients and services delivered. Okay, so you have to prove that this company is truly active. If your company has your name on it or is family owned, there's more scrutiny. And for small self-owned companies, provide proof of ownership, activity, and client relationships. So the authorities, the UGE, will expect more documentations if that is your case, if you're a business owner. Now, there's two ways to apply for this visa. Either you prove that you have relevant studies, okay, relevant education, or work experience. In the case that you go for the second path, okay, you would qualify if you show a degree. But if you don't have a degree, you must show at least 3 years of relevant professional experience. And by relevant, I mean that it has to match with the job that you are applying. Okay, and for this, you will have to provide a detailed letter from former employers or clients where you must outline the role, the responsibilities, the dates when that role happened. And as we said, in 2025, official proof will be required. But this is depending on the status and how you apply. Okay, it will require certain documents or not. I highly recommend you going with professional help, professional immigration lawyers who are knowledgeable of this type of visa that you can find on Spainguru.es, and they will determine what kind of specific official proof that can match the 3 years of relevant professional experience. Okay, but I'm going to mention you certain documents depending also where you are applying from. Social Security records, examples, HMRC, SSA 750, or detailed report from your current or past companies, and 1099s forms, etc. Okay, like tax documents, 1099s, P60s for the UK, self-employment pages. Okay, plus invoices, bank statements tied to your freelance work. Okay, all this has to match. All the file needs to match. So all these documents need to match among themselves, and also with the curriculum or CV. Okay, and the CV will require a simple translation, not necessary to have a strong translation for that. Okay, now about taxes. Okay, we mentioned before that at the beginning there was a lot of hype, people saying like, oh, you can move to Spain, you can enjoy a 24% flat rate for 6 years. But the truth is, eligibility for the Beckham law only applies for employees generally and doesn't apply to contractors. Okay, but if you are applying as a contractor or autonomo, then you will pay standard or general regime progressive income tax rates that range from 19% up to 47%. They're progressive. Okay. And also, if you're applying as an autonomo and therefore you're not providing a certificate of coverage or A1 Social Security certificate, you will also be responsible to pay for paying the Social Security in Spain. That you will have also to pay on a monthly basis. Okay, so you will have to pay your taxes as an autonomo on a quarterly basis. Okay, your income taxes, you will pay around 15-20% income tax. Okay, in advance. Then annually you will pay the remainder. Then you will have to gather VAT for Spanish customers, which is not likely that you have, but you can have up to 20% income of Spain customers. Okay, from those you will gather VAT, and then you will have to repay the VAT to the authorities every single quarter and do an annual declaration at the beginning of the year. And you will have to pay your Social Security on a monthly basis. Okay. So that's what's going to happen if you apply as an autonomous, right? So forget about the 24% flat rate that was initially hyped, unless you're an employee and you can apply for the Beckham law. Another threshold that I want you to have in mind is that people who are earning less than 55,000 taxable income in euros, usually the Beckham law or special tax regime is not very beneficial. Okay, because there is extra administrative burden, there are no allowances, there are no deductions for family, etc., etc. So if you're making less than 55K taxable income, always I'll go with the tax advisor that will check with you, but generally they will recommend you going through the ordinary regime, okay? Because you will be paying less taxes, in fact. We mentioned that the UGE has had some unpredictable decisions in the past and currently, so be prepared for that, okay? As their interpretations can vary, the requirements can vary depending on the different files. Rejections can happen even if your application is very strong, very straightforward, okay? I've seen people who applied and then they got denied, and then they reapplied again without changing a single comma, and then they were accepted by UGE. So potentially the officer reviewing your case, opinion can change, and maybe someone else reviewed your second application and it was okay. Things like that can happen, and they happen all along Spanish bureaucracy, okay? Depending who you talk to, you get an outcome or another, okay? But usually applying from the UGE versus a consulate is much, much more streamlined, okay? Consulates are even more separated in terms of how they interpret the different rules and requirements, okay? But of course, if you have to reapply, you will try to reorganize your documents, try to improve what you're applying with, okay? Potentially check what they have signaled as the reason of denial, okay? And work to fix it, okay? But reapplying is much better than appealing, because appeals can take months, versus reapplications can take up to 20 days, okay? So yeah, be careful when you apply. Check the calendar, because if you apply just before holidays like summertime and Christmas, they can be stricter or rushed because they have less staff reviewing each case. So yes, prepare for that as well. Okay, now we're gonna go now with the requirements for the Spanish digital nomad visa. Okay, so before we talk about the jargon, then we talked about the updates in 2025, but now we're gonna go step by step with each of the different things: eligibility criteria, documentation, and how to submit it. Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about the financial threshold. You need to be making active income at least 2,763 euros per month. This is calculated on a 14-pay basis of the 200% of the minimum salary in Spain. But lawyers that I have interviewed, they mentioned that it can be 2,600 euros in 2025. Okay, so this is the minimum threshold, okay, to apply. You have to be working remotely, first of all, has to be proven that you're working remotely, okay? And no more than 20% of your income can come from Spanish customers, okay? You have either a university degree or related to your role that you're applying with, or at least 3 years of relevant matching professional experience, okay? You will have to provide clean criminal records for the past 5 years. Also, if you're living in different countries, you need to provide the police records for those countries where you were a legal resident in the past 5 years. You will have to prove that your employer or clients have existed for at least 1 year, like operating and doing business, and confirm that your work, as we said, is being done remotely using digital tools. So not every job would apply or would qualify for the digital nomad visa. Now, going to the financial thresholds, there you can see the calculations. How we arrived for one applicant is 2,763 euros. This is being on the safe side for 14 pays of 200% of the minimum salary, but it can be 12 pays of the minimum salary, 2,600 euros. Okay, these are the minimum thresholds. Now, if you are applying with a couple, okay, or a family, now the calculations are not 200% of the minimum salary, will be 75%, okay, for spouse, and for the children is 25%, okay, and 25% every one of them. There you can see the minimum, let's say, safe side financial thresholds, okay. For a family of 4 is nearly 4,500 euros per month that you need to prove that you're obtained, right? Now, all these amounts are gross before taxes and expenses, and if you're self-employed, income must be shown before deducting costs, okay? And remember that you can also use savings to support your case if you don't quite make it for the financial threshold, but it can never replace consistent income, Okay, you can have, people, this is not written anywhere, but people say that you cannot use more than 20% as savings, okay, than the total financial threshold, okay? And you will have to document this income via contracts, pay slips, invoices, and bank statements. Now, let's go through the application checklist. What you need to submit. You'll need, first, you will sign a signed letter from your employer or main client confirming your role, your job title, job description, your pay in euros, remote work authorization from Spain, and confirmation of arrangement is long-term, okay? Then your work contract, ideally without a fixed end date, because if you apply from Spain without a fixed end date in your contract, they can grant you a residency permit for up to 3 years. So your first renewal will not come until those 3 years end, okay? Now, if your contract has an end date and less than the 3 years, then the maximum that you will be able to obtain the residency will be up to that date, okay? Now, the last 3 months of stamped and or signed personal bank statements showing income, last 3 months of pay slips or invoices, okay? Company certificate with apostille now, proving your employer or client has existed for at least 1 year, proof of qualifications or the 3 years of relevant experience, criminal background check, and signed declaration, and also police checks for the previous jurisdictions where you were a legal resident during the past 5 years. In some cases, okay, if you are not going to be paying Social Security, then you would have to provide a private health insurance that needs to mimic the full coverage, okay, in Spain. Passport application form, payment receipt of the fees for application, photo, and each document must be sworn translated or simply translated, okay, but official certified apostille documents need to be sworn translated and apostilled or legalized by the country that issue it. And if you're applying, then depending whether you're applying as an employee or as a contractor, let's talk as specifically if you're applying as an employee, W2 in the US, okay, or if you're applying as an employee from the UK. This is generally the two countries that are being accepted right now in Spain for the Spanish digital nomad as an employee. Okay, so if you're employed by the foreign company, your employer must confirm your remote status and job duties. W2 form can support your income, but it's not enough by itself. You may need, or you will need, basically. Just a quick moment. Over 60% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. That's a lot of people getting value without hitting that button. If my videos have helped you understand Spain's immigration process, visas, or life here, even just once, please subscribe now. I'm working hard to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025, and your click truly makes a difference. Thanks so much. Now, let's keep going. An A1 certificate or certificate of coverage to prove that you are paying Social Security in your country of origin. Otherwise, you have to pay Social Security in Spain as an autónomo, or your company will have to open a company in Spain or use the company that they already have opened, okay? And they will pay Social Security in Spain for you, okay? And you will be an employee, right? And it is recommended that you also show a signed letter confirming that you won't have any impact on Spain labor market. Okay, this is helpful. This is something that some lawyers have noted, okay, in their applications that they've been doing, and it's been helpful and increased their rate of approval. Okay, and here you have a table that compares many things. It compares whether you're applying as an employee, okay, using a certificate of coverage, Social Security certificate, versus you're applying as a self-employed. It has both of them. They have pros and cons. This would take a very long time to comment, but you will receive a recording of this webinar and this presentation, and you can go back and read it. Okay, but basically, not everyone has the versatility to apply with any of those two. Okay. But if you are in this situation, whether that you can apply with the two situations, okay, check with an immigration lawyer so that you design a correct short, mid, and long-term strategy for your stay in Spain. Now, let's Talk about certificates of coverage. I'm going to mention US, Canada, and other countries. In the USA, the certificate of coverage, you will request it, as we said, online or snail mail, okay? And in Canada, you will request it via Service Canada. If you're working in the EU and you're a non-EU passport holder, you apply for a digital nomad visa for Spain. There is the A1 certificate. The UK, since it was part of European Union before Brexit, they still have this certificate accepted in Spain, A1, okay? And as we kind of mentioned before, the certificate will cover the full duration of your initial visa. Normally for the A1 in the UK, it can be up to 2 years, and then you renew it, but it is hard to renew it. So you will have to have a strategy to continue to be in Spain, okay? So as we said, that strategy could follow different pathways, okay, like registering as autonomo and staying in Spain as an autonomo, or maybe becoming a regular and applying via arraigos. Okay, so you will have to have a plan, okay, in case your certificate of coverage basically expires, okay? You will have to have it apostilled and soon translated into Spanish. Now, as we mentioned, there is the option that the company that hired you as an employee opens a Spanish company or subsidiary and pays you via the Spanish subsidiary. Okay, is this a viable option, right? Now, generally, this is a complex process if they haven't done it before for other employees in Spain, and it's often quite costly. Therefore, the experience is that many companies don't want to do it, okay, and many people actually decide to turn into contractors or autonomous, okay, and start invoicing those companies. So change their work status with those companies in order to enable them to be able to apply for the digital nomad visas, okay? So if there's something to analyze with your employer and with an immigration lawyers. So this is a pathway that you can follow. If you can't provide a certificate of coverage from your country, work as an employee, your company doesn't open a company in Spain, then you can become an autonomo, okay? Now, if you become an autonomo, there are different things that you need to do, and there are different time frames, okay? So you will have to register as autonomo in Spain with the tax authorities and the social security authorities, okay? And you will start to file regular tax declarations, as we said, quarterly and annually about income and VAT, and pay your social security on a monthly basis. Now, once you obtain your digital nomad residency, if you obtain it from a consulate abroad, you need to enter Spain and register as autonomo immediately. Okay, if you go to Spain as a tourist, you get your digital nomad visa approved. The day that your residency starts is the day of approval. Okay, so you have to register right after that as autonomous. Okay, and coming back to social security contributions, now we're going to talk about a few numbers. Normally, the first year you will pay small amounts. You will pay about 80, 90 euros per month, okay? And then depending on how much money you have made that first year, they will set up your contribution according to that income threshold, normally at around 300 euros. And then it could go up, okay? I think the maximum payment is a little bit less than 600 euros per month, okay? Also, something that you need to have in mind that in your budget is accounting fees. I highly recommend you using a third-party expert to file your taxes in Spain, okay? And if you're an American passport holder, also use software or someone who files your taxes in the US as well, okay? If you need tax accountants and tax advisors, you can go on Spainguru. Yes, I have very interesting services online with very reasonable prices that are expert in digital nomad visa contractors, okay? Now, This is $1 million question. People ask, do I need the residency card in order to register as autónomo? Some people fail into this trap, and the rule says that you need to register as autónomo as soon as you get your digital nomad visa approval, okay, as we mentioned before. And some people stay in the blank and they start trying to get appointments with the police to go do the fingerprints so that they can obtain their residency card, and they don't register as autónomo. Also, they get the bad advice from certain gestores or tax accountants who say to them, no, you need to have your residency card in place before you can register as autónomo, but it can take weeks, if not months, to obtain your residency card, okay? And then you would be failing to register as autónomo immediately, right? So you don't need your TA or residency card in order to register as autónomo. This is important that you have it in mind. Now, let's talk about other pitfalls. Can a criminal record affect your application? And yes, the answer is yes. You must provide a criminal record, as we said, for every country where you lived in the previous 5 years, and even minor offenses can trigger delays or even rejections, okay? Spanish authorities will generally look for serious criminal convictions, fraud, drug-related offenses, or repeated offenses, okay? So in some cases, older and minor infractions may be overlooked, okay? If it's something small, like driving under the influence several years ago, and it was something punctual, etc., or maybe smoking pot, stuff like that, okay? But you have to be careful. And if you have criminal records, always go with legal advice, because they will prepare you for this application, okay? There are ways to prepare it. So this is a official certificate by the authorities of another country. You will need to apostille it, okay? In the case of USA, it's federal apostille, and soon translate it into Spanish, okay? Remember, there is a Q&A session after this presentation, and you can ask your questions anytime in the chat box in the bottom right corner of your screen. But if you have to leave early for any reason and you think that the information I'm providing with you today is helpful, you're learning something new, please leave a review on Trustpilot, okay? There's a button there on the top that you can push, you can press, and it will redirect you to Trustpilot, where you can leave a review. That would be fantastic. It would be very, very motivating. And if you are using Spainguru.es for anything, the services, the information, etc., and you think it's a great platform, please leave a review there, because it really, really helps others find this content. Now, let's continue with the presentation, okay? Do you need a degree? We said that you don't necessarily need a degree. The option 1 is having it, okay? And the option 2 is having at least 3 years of professional experience. Now, let's move to talk about the university diploma. It has to be in a relevant field related to the job that you're applying with. Must be legalized, okay? Must be officially translated, sworn translated. The degrees must be graduate or postgraduate level from recognized institutions. And, as we said, related to current job, okay? And the option 2 is the 3 years professional experience, okay? Also related to the work that you'll be doing in Spain, and supported by all the documents that we mentioned in the 2025 updates. Now let's take how you prove that you let's take out this button, okay, for Trustpilot, so we can see the titles much better, okay? How you prove freelance or contract experience, okay? If you're applying as a freelance or contractor, I have to prove it. The way you do it is that you submit a detailed CV that aligns with the application. You will include client letters confirming work history, scope, and timelines. As we mentioned, social security records from your home country, tax filings, invoices, and proof of payment. So this is the documents that are official documents, okay, that support your experience as a freelance, okay, or as a contractor, right? And of course, you need to provide this in a very organized way, if necessary, explain it in a letter of intent, where you clearly state why you have ordered those documents in that way that you're applying with, okay? And everything needs to match, everything needs to be consistent. Everything needs to be related, okay? You need to build a story and convince the officer that it will review your case. Now, a very good, big advantage of the digital nomad visa, especially after May 20th, where the Reglamento Extranjería, or by law, the regulation of the immigration law changed, leaving several visas without the possibility to bring adult children, for example, the case of non-relocative visa. But the digital nomad visa lets you bring your family, okay? It lets you bring your family and also adult children. So you can include spouse or legally registered partner, children under 18, and adult children, so children over 18 up to 26 years old, okay? And parents as well. But you will have to prove dependent situations, right? So in order to include the partner or spouse, you need to provide the original copy of marriage or civil partnership certificate, apostille and so on translated, proof of shared finances or cohabitation in case you are a non-married couple, okay, or stable partners. And in such case, you will need to provide documents that you have been cohabitating for at least 1 year, such as lease agreements, joint bills, shared bank accounts, or if you have children in common, that also works, okay? And of course, the more you are applying, the more the higher the financial threshold, as we saw a few slides ago. Now, if you bring children or adult dependents or elderly parents, now let's talk about the different category. If you're bringing minor children, you will need birth certificates, apostille and so on translated, proof of financial support, and school plans is also helpful to make your a stronger case. If you're bringing adult children, but there are two categories, up from 18 years old until 26, must show that they're in full-time studying, financial dependence, proof of living with you, okay, so that you are part of the same family unit and they're not living with, they're not married elsewhere, okay? So in order to prove this, it will be helpful to provide certificate of single status, so they didn't marry, and proof of not working, for example, via the Social Security or your tax records, showing that these adult children depend financially from you. Now, if they're over 26, only allowed if they're medically incapably dependent, okay? And you will need to provide official incapacity documentation. People bringing adopted children, you must include a court ruling confirming legal guardianship or adoption or similar document, okay? And for parents or in-laws, they must prove that there is a real stable financial or physical dependence, such as full support via bank transfers, okay? So be careful with this. You need to be sending money, okay, to your parents or to your in-laws previously, okay, so you can show your bank statements that you have been literally sending them money to support them in the past, okay? And each case will be addressed individually, okay, or that they're depending from you from a medical type of dependency, let's say, right? So you will normally also need to provide a notarized declaration, okay? And of course, you will have to increase your financial threshold because these are more people that are depending on your income, okay? Now, there is also some timing or time frame that we need to pay attention to. If family members apply later, okay, not with the main applicant, then there is extra documentation is required. But if you're applying as a self-employed or you're promising to become an autonomo in Spain, you must fully be registered as an autonomo before they can apply. And this can take time. So if you're applying as autonomo and you're bringing your family afterwards, okay, be careful about this timing, okay? Question, do you need to have private health insurance coverage? Okay, let's talk about it on a case by case. First, if you're covered by a valid A1 certificate or certificate of coverage for foreign Social Security, insurance is not required. You're paying Social Security in your home countries. If you're registered as a self-employed in Spain, you will be automatically covered by Spanish public healthcare system, and you will also be paying your pension in Spain, and how you say, if you're sickness leave, parenting leave, etc. That's all included by paying your Social Security contribution every month. Now, If neither of these apply, you will need a private health insurance. So if you don't get coverage by the public healthcare system, you will need to get a compliant private health insurance that has no co-payments, no deductibles, offers full coverage in Spain, and is valid for the entire duration of your visa of at least 1 year. Okay, and you will have to provide a certificate of coverage that is issued by the private healthcare company, and it has to be authorized to operate in Spain. Therefore, probably using Spanish companies for this purpose is the way to go. Okay. Now, something very important that not many people tell you. If your plans are to stay on a long-term basis in Spain and you want to be eligible for the long-term residency, okay, you have to pay attention to a few things. You become potentially eligible for long-term residency if you have been living in Spain legally via residency for 5 years. Okay. Now, there are a few minimum requirements for the eligibility of the long-term residency, which is a much better type of residency than the teleworkers residency or digital nomad visa. Much better. Okay. First of all, you can't be outside of Spain more than 10 months in the previous 5 years. Okay. Those 10 months don't need to be consecutive, and they cannot be in blocks of more than 6 months. Second of all, you can have an interrupted residency status, legal residency status, okay, not even 1 day. So you have to be careful. If you change by residency type or your digital nomad residency expires, be careful. You need to have a plan. You can't have a healthcare coverage gap, okay? And this is where we're going. In the event in which you come to Spain as a tourist and you get your digital nomad visa approved, your first day of residency in Spain is the day in which your visa was approved, okay? Now, if you are applying as an autónomo, normally you will wait a few weeks, okay, or days or weeks in order to be registered as autónomo. Those days and weeks, you will not have healthcare coverage. Therefore, you will be a legal resident in Spain without healthcare coverage. Now, if you're applying later for the long-term residency, they will see that those days and weeks will not, you were not covered, okay? Therefore, that time will not count for your 5 years, okay, of legal residency in order to make you eligible for long-term residency. Therefore, it is highly recommended that you get a private healthcare health insurance in order to not have any gap in healthcare coverage. This is in the case in which you plan to stay for the long term, okay? So in case you need a private health insurance, I highly recommend you getting a non-binding free quote from my recommended exclusive agent for Adeslas, which is by far the most cost-effective health insurance company in Spain. By far, it has 30% of the market in Spain, and working with my recommended exclusive agent, Carlos Blanco, who is not only a health insurance agent, but he's also an expert immigration lawyer, expert in digital nomad visa applications. Okay, so he can give you a very, very good advice, taking into account your specific immigration situation if you're applying for this visa. Okay, and it is, of course, free to get a non-binding quote. You can get it. You go on Spainguru.es, fill the form, and he sends you a non-binding quote for the coverage, and it is free to ask for it, of course. There's no strings attached. Now, let's talk about other extras to have in mind. Entry stamps into Spain, apostils, and translations, okay? Now, passport entry stamp. It is required when you apply for the visa that you show that you're physically present in Spain. For this, you need to show the passport, and the passport has to have entry stamps, okay? So if you enter outside of Schengen, Schengen is a 29 group of countries, 29 member states of Europe that is internally borderless. So if you enter from outside of Schengen, for example, New York to Madrid, you fly directly, you get Spanish authorities to stamp your passport. But if you enter via another Schengen country, for example, you fly from London, which is not Schengen, you fly to Frankfurt, okay, or to Paris, and then you drive from Paris to Spain, you will not get your Spanish stamp, okay? Or you fly from New York to Frankfurt, and you get stamps from the German authorities, and then you fly from Frankfurt to Madrid, for example, you don't get the Spanish authorities. In that case, it is recommended that you get a paper called Declaración de Entrada, that is signed by the police station, okay? Normally the police station at the airport or next to the border, otherwise they don't know what they're talking about. Those police stations are used to provide this document. You bring this one-page document saying like, my name is blah, 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 I entered this date into Spain, and they will stamp it and sign it, and then you will use this to prove that you enter Spain on that specific date, and this is an official document of your entry. This is only in the case in which you enter Spain via another Schengen country and you didn't get the stamp of Spanish authorities. Okay? We're talking about apostilles. You'll need to legalize official documents from abroad, from translators, okay, for those official documents. The CV will need a normal or simple translation, okay? And you will need to fill application forms that need to be, of course, completely filled and signed, okay? So be careful paying attention to all this. Have to be very careful with all those details because it can lead to rejections or delays, okay? We mentioned that up to a certain level, you can use savings to get to the financial threshold, but they will never replace having active income coming from remote activities, okay? So it's important. The more dependence that you bring, the more they let you complete with savings, okay? And savings can also be used to strengthen your case in case you are self-employed and you have very big variations along the months, okay, in your monthly income, especially if you're self-employed, okay? And how you will prove those via bank statements with your name. Fixed, it can be used fixed terms deposit or investment accounts as well, as long as they are liquid and readily available without any penalties, okay? And you have to prove consistent ownership of those accounts and, as we said, direct access to those funds. When should I register as autónomo? We said, if you got your visa in Spain, immediately after approval. If you got it from a consulate, once you enter Spain, you will have to register as autónomo, okay? Now, if you receive it, talking about the residency card now, okay? You have officially, if you already come with a visa approved from a consulate, you will have officially 30 days to get your residency card, okay, or TA card, okay? That usually never happens because there's not too many appointments available. There's a huge bottleneck everywhere in Spain, okay? And but it can take a bit longer, okay? Maybe weeks, maybe several months, okay? And then you will obtain your residency card, right? And also, if you're coming as an autónomo, remember that not only you need to register as autónomo immediately after approval, but also you need to register with Spanish Social Security, Seguridad Social. These are two offices. One is Agencia Tributaria or tax office for autónomo, and then you have Seguridad Social, okay, for your autónomo, for your Social Security payment, okay? So be careful with these timings that will change depending on when you got your visa approved, where you got it approved, and your job status, okay? Employee versus autónomo, right? Now, there's also a $1 million question. People ask, should I apply from my consulate abroad, or there are pros from applying from Spain? Definitely, there are many pros or advantages of applying from Spain. The pros: if you apply from Spain, no need to wait in your home country. You enter Spain as a tourist and you apply once you're here. This is, of course, provided you have the right to enter Spain as a tourist. There are several nationalities that need to get a Schengen visa in order to enter as tourists into the Schengen area. But if you're American, UK, Canada, Australia, etc., you don't need a Schengen visa, and you have up to 90 days in 180-day rolling period to stay in the Schengen area and therefore apply physically present in Spain, okay? If you apply from Spain, there's faster appointment scheduling. You can apply directly online through the UGE portal, so you don't need to get an appointment versus applying in the consulate, you need to get an appointment. This process is much more streamlined if you do it from Spain versus consulates. There are crazy differences and the interpretations vary. There's greater control over your move. Okay, once you move to Spain, you can settle, get housing, school for your kids, and logistics can be solved while you are awaiting for approval. Easier family reunification later. Once you're approved, your family members can join as dependents, depending on your status. Pay attention to the timeline. Approval with an indefinite contract can grant you residency for up to 3 years versus 1 year maximum if you apply from a consulate. Therefore, the renewal comes much faster. Okay. The cons about doing it from Spain, there's a strict 90-day window to apply. The Schengen rules that we mentioned. There is an entry proof required. Okay, so you need Spanish stamps or declaración de entrada. Visa will start immediately, so your residency starts immediately upon approval. So be careful with that, not having gaps of healthcare coverage if you're planning to apply later for the long-term residency. Versus applying from a consulate, you can choose, let's say, or suggest a visa start date as long as you allow enough processing time for the authorities. Okay. Now, there are some risks if denied. The appeal process in Spain takes much longer. Okay, it's not recommended. So the best is to reapply, and in order to reapply, you need to have days left. Okay, otherwise you need to leave and then come back and reapply once you have enough days. Now I have asked this in the Digital Nomad Visa group for Spainguru, and about 80% apply from Spain versus 20% are applying from their own consulates. Okay, this was in June. The timeline for the visa application, if you do it from Spain, is very simple. First, allow enough time to gather your documents and make your case. Travel to Spain. There are people who enter Spain and literally apply right after it. Okay, so they leave enough days in case of any issues. You'll wait for a resolution. Up to 20 business days it can take. Okay, and they're quite strict about this. Okay, and then you will receive your approval or denial. Okay, now what if you work with clients who are not companies, that they are individuals? That can happen, and there shouldn't be any problem. That's okay. You can apply in this case, and the key is to prove that the relationship is stable, long-term, and remote. You will have to include invoices and client names, proof of regular payments, written confirmation from the client about the work you do. And if you have multiple smaller clients, you have to show consistent income across several months, okay, to make a strong case. And try to avoid contracts that suggest that you're doing work for Spanish-based individuals, unless it is clearly allowed within that 20% maximum threshold. Okay, now if you're also working with NGOs, these are acceptable. The contracts with this type of organizations are acceptable if they operate as a company. So showing consistent activity, legal status, and financial transactions is also important if you do it. Okay, but there are people approved working for NGOs. We mentioned that in order to get your residency card, you need to obtain an appointment at the national police station or foreign office. And just bear in mind that it's very, very hard to obtain them. It is very common. Lately, Valencia, which is a major attractor of digital nomads, are having long wait lists, okay, to obtain the TA card. But it doesn't stop your legal status, okay? You just don't have your plastic residency card, but once you obtain it, let's say the start of your residency will go retroactively to the day in which you obtain your visa, or that you enter Spain if you got it from a consulate, okay? So you have to try to be flexible in order to obtain an appointment. You can do it at police stations in nearby towns within the same province, or you can use a relocation expert or gestor to book it on your behalf, okay? Pay. Sometimes it's a better option. Now, there is also a little trick or hack, which is that you can obtain your TA appointment in Madrid and Barcelona, which is interesting because they don't ask you for an empadronamiento, okay? And you can do it via the UGE. And this is the general guide on how to obtain the TIE card, the residency card. But as I mentioned, there is this little hack if you're in a hurry to obtain the tarjeta de residencia or TIE, that you can just travel to Madrid, stay one night in a hotel, go to your appointment, get the card, and then go back to your wherever you were from, because you don't require an empadronamiento. So watch that video on Spainguru YouTube channel, more than 1,000 videos, many of them about the digital nomad visa, and I release one video per day. Now let's talk about taxes and social security and what you will pay, what you will be paying. Let's crunch some numbers. This is for illustrative purposes only, so that you just understand more or less what the burden will be. So as self-employed, we're going to talk about, you will pay monthly social security for the first 12 months, 80 to 100 euros. If you live in certain areas like Madrid or Andalusia, in the second year, they will pay you back. If you request it, they will pay you back what you paid during the first year, so about 1,000 euros back that they will repay you back. Second year and beyond, the quota that you need to pay on a monthly basis will be recalculated depending on the income that you had the previous year, okay? And the Social Security will include access to Spanish public healthcare system for you and your family, subsidized medicines, okay? This is very interesting. Even though if you pay retail price without subsidy, they are very affordable compared to the US, for example. But if you go with the subsidized one, it's incredibly cheap. And retirement disability advantages and parental leave and sickness benefits, okay? So it's important that you budget these costs as well. And here there are a few calculations. This is, again, ballpark figures just to understand more or less where things are going. If you're making 30K a year, you will be paying 25%, okay, of taxes and Social Security. If you're paying 60K, about 30%, and if you're making 100K, around 36 to 40%, okay? And the rest you will get it in your pocket. And this is only talking about income, okay? No other sources other sources of income. This is just like the one generated from work, okay? Now there is a case of someone who arrives later on in the year, okay? And it is important that you understand that you become a Spanish tax resident if any of three conditions apply. The first one, if you spend physically in Spain more than 183 days per year, and this is per year is a calendar year from January 1st to December 31st. Those 183 days don't need to be consecutive, and it doesn't matter your status. You could be a tourist, you could be holder of a visa and anything, okay? Just physically present in Spain, those days will count towards tax residency. So if you arrive after July 2nd, there's only 182 days left in the year, the calendar year, until December 31st. Therefore, you won't become a Spanish tax resident, okay? So this person, there are other two conditions. If your primary income is sourced from Spain or your family lives in Spain, you could also potentially be deemed to be a tax resident in Spain. And becoming tax resident in Spain will make you liable for paying taxes on your global income and potentially on the net value of your assets, okay, via wealth tax and solidarity tax. Now, if this is a special case or normal case, someone who arrived in Spain in September, applied for the DNB in October, was approved in November, and in December was just registered as autonomous. This person was asking, how do I pay taxes? Do I have to pay taxes in 2024? And how? Okay. And this expert was saying, it's a particularly gray area as you weren't resident, you owed your TIE card, so you weren't officially allowed to work, but you're supposed to pay tax in the country where you're physically working, so strictly speaking, on any work performed since September. So this person was in Spain, was not a tax resident in 2024, but since this person was in Spain working from their computer, that work should pay tax. And generally, tax advisors will say that in 2024, this person would pay for their income non-resident tax. Okay, that's a flat rate, 24% for income. And then when this person becomes a tax resident in 2025, will pay tax as a Spanish tax resident. Okay, this is generally, please consult with a tax advisor and not a tax advisor. Then there is the Spanish progressive tax system that works for several types of taxes. We're talking now about income tax, okay, that you normally pay on June 30th, annual income tax. If you're an autonomous, you will also have to pay advance payments on a quarterly basis. But those tax brackets for income tax range from 19% to 47%. You will notice that, for example, the fifth bracket is 45%. And a common question is, if I make 100K income, do I have to pay 45% tax? Because 100K would fall into the fifth tax bracket of 45%. Now, what happens is that it is progressive, and progressive means that for the first 12,450 euros, you will pay 19%. For the next 7,750, 24%, then 30%, then 37%, then 45% for the final 40,000 euros. Therefore, you will be paying a median or average of those tax brackets. Therefore, the effective tax rate for income for a taxable amount of 100K is around 36% and not 45%. And here you have the calculations for the different tax effective rates for the different income levels. 30K is 24%, and it goes to 36% if you're making 100K. This is general numbers, so just you understand how the progressive tax brackets work. And depending on the type of income, there are different progressive brackets. Okay, for example, investments, they are not taxed as high. Okay, but you still need to declare and pay taxes on them if you're a Spanish tax resident, right? The calendar for autonomous for taxes, as we said, quarterly payments for income for VAT, and in January, the annual VAT, if you're gathering VAT from Spanish customers. Then you also have your annual tax obligations where you pay income tax in June. If you have a certain wealth level, depending on where you live, you will pay the wealth tax or not, okay? Generally, Madrid and Andalusia are the most favorable regions in terms of regional taxes. If you buy property, also they have lower taxes. Also, you will have to declare 720 form, your overseas values. And the way it works is that you have different categories. You have bank accounts, real estate, cryptocurrencies. And if the whole category goes over 50K, you will have to declare everything inside that category. For example, bank accounts or properties abroad. Okay, so tax authorities want to know what you have outside of Spain, and they may take their own conclusions. Okay. As I said before, always go with the tax advisor and tax accountant to advise you on your situation, maybe run a simulation on your taxes before you move to Spain. And once you move to Spain, someone to file your taxes, especially if you're autonomous. It is crazy. I am autonomous. I file my own taxes, and I use one of the tax accountants that I have listed on Spainguru.es, and I'm very, very happy. And I would never, I would have to spend 5 days every single month just filing taxes by myself and not adding value in what I think I do better or I want to do with my life. So definitely go with a professional, especially if you're not a Spanish speaker. Okay. And other calculations so that you know more or less the burden of your taxes, income tax and social security tax, with the thresholds, the monthly thresholds, okay, for income, starting at 2,750 euros, total deduction, you would have to pay around 31%, and up to 10K per month, up to 39%, okay? This is what the authorities and Social Security, tax authorities and Social Security authorities more or less will get from you and what you will have left. If you want to know more about taxes, join my bi-weekly or every 3 weeks Spanish taxes webinar, okay? It is absolutely free, and I always send you a recording, and there is a Q&A session at the end. And for the renewal, we said, treat it as almost as a new application, and it will depend on when your initial visa approval was, okay? If you got it from a Spanish consulate abroad, it will be maximum up to a year. If you got it from Spain and you had an indefinite contract up to 3 years, so then you will have to renew. And after 3 years, you can renew for up to 2 more years, okay? Important deadlines, you have to look at your residency card, obtain the residency card, and then when that card expires, okay, when your residency expires, you can start the renewal process as early as 60 days before the permit expires, and I highly recommend you doing so as early as possible. Don't wait until the last minutes. There are delays. Documents can put your status at risk, so be careful with that. And think that after 5 years, you could potentially be eligible with the requirements that I told you before for the long-term residence, which is much more favorable and easier than the digital nomad visa or other visa types. Another important thing, if you want to become a Spanish citizen, normally countries that are there in gray, normally, if you want to obtain it by residency, need to wait at least 10 years of legal residency in Spain. The countries in red, Latin American countries, Filipinas, Portugal, Brazil, Andorra, in just 2 years of legal residency in Spain, they can be eligible to apply for the Spanish citizenship, and the digital nomad visa residency counts. Okay, so this can be done if you're a holder dual citizen. Even if you obtain your digital residency with a US passport, you can leverage your Colombian passport or Mexican passport or Puerto Rican citizenship, okay, as long as they are by origin and not by naturalization, according to the local country's laws, you can benefit from the 2-year fast track, okay? If you're in this situation, always go with legal help. And remember, you can be outside of Spain before applying as a dual citizen, benefited from the 2-year fast track, more than 3 months per each of the previous years. So 3 months 1 year and 3 months 1 year, maximum out of Spain. Otherwise, you would lose your eligibility for the Spanish citizenship application. What's different when you renew your visa? Well, remember that renewing is not just a formality, it's almost like applying. So you must meet all the income thresholds, your work and legal requirements, and it will be required that you show updated income proof of the past 6 to 12 months, updated criminal record certificate, but this time from Spain, proof of continued remote work and business activity, and confirmation of a Spanish address. Okay, this is the empadronamiento, an up-to-date empadronamiento. And if there are any changes in your status, in your work, etc., you officially should inform UGE within 30 days of any changes. Okay. Now, common renewal issues: income drops below the required level, freelancers fail to show consistent activity, delays with paperwork or using expired documents. You need to update those official documents. New apostille requirements, okay, people who thought that they didn't have to apostille before your initial application, but now in 2025, they are apostilles in those documents, and gaps in health coverage also can happen. So thing to consider, remember, after 5 years, you can apply for the long-term residency, but there shouldn't be any gaps or any interruptions in your residency status. You have to comply with the minimum stay requirements that we mentioned before. And remember that if you're applying for the 2-year fast track, no more than 3 months per each year, okay? How to avoid surprises when you renew the digital nomad residency permit? Well, first of all, be organized from day one. Keep organized income statements, invoices, and client letters, social security payment records if you're self-employed. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every single month. Update your empadronamiento. The empadronamiento has a validity normally of 3 months, so you need to update the empadronamiento. Set reminders to begin the renewal process at least 60 days before the expiration date of your TA card, and start gathering the documents 4 to 3 months before expiration at the very least, okay, and get the new background check from Spain, okay? Hopefully you won't have any pending legal issues that could be a potential problem when you apply if you got any records in Spain while you were staying in Spain. Now, the A1 or certificate of coverage expired. There's maximum of 2 years normally, typically, and it's very hard to renew, okay? So you have to set up a strategy if you want to stay longer and be eligible for the long-term residency. And there's different pathways. First, you can go and apply for the renewal of the certificate of coverage in your country, but be careful. Second, you could become an autonomo in Spain and register with the Spanish Social Security, so changing your status. You could convince your employer to register in Spain Social Security, which would potentially give you eligibility to Beckham Law, but this is highly unlikely because of what we mentioned. You can leave Spain temporarily, which may reset the clock for long-term residency later on because it is interrupted Okay, and you could consider immigration pathways such as arraigo, non-lucrative residency, changing into an ordinary work permit. Okay, and of course, an immigration expert on Spainguru.es. You can find them that can set up a proper long-term strategy for you. Okay, and there has been UGE renewal rejections based only on the expiration of the A1 coverage. Okay, and Spain expects continuity. So pay attention to that. Now we're closing the presentation. Now we can go to the Q&A session. But before, I remind you can use Spainguru.es for absolutely free. I want to share the screen with you briefly. I think, first of all, you can join the Spainguru Spanish Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group with almost 18,000 members, a very active group. Okay, this is absolutely free. There's people applying, asking questions, experts answering those questions. And we have Spainguru, which is absolutely free. Okay, we have wonderful reviews out there, almost 5-star, 100% 5 stars in Trustpilot and Google. Okay, and here you can join the Move to Spain checklist. Okay, this is free. That you can see in the last 12 months before moving to Spain the different things that you need to do. Okay, this is general for any type of visa, so take it with a pinch of salt, but I can give you inspiration. Okay, you can join the other webinars: taxes, non-lucrative visa, moving to Spain, golden visa in Portugal, etc., etc. You can join the weekly newsletter, as we mentioned before, explore the destinations in Spain, 13 different places in Spain, and so many things on Spainguru. Everything is free. The guides for the digital nomad visa, the full guide here. And as we said, there's more Facebook groups and subreddits. And if you need services, if you need experts, here you can find my personally vetted immigration lawyers, on translators, apostille services, legal advice, health insurance visas, medical certificates, taxes, tax experts, filings in Spain, filings in the US, tax accountants or gestores, mortgages. If you want to learn Spanish, you can also find Spanish as well. Courses, online courses for adults, so many things. Definitely take some time to go around and check everything that Spainguru.es has to offer you. Okay? And we can stay in touch here on hello@spainguru.es. You can always write me an email. I'll be happy to point you out in the right direction, at least, or share with you my resources. And yes, we're here in the Q&A session. There's people connected there. And if you need to leave for any reason and you think that this webinar is helpful, please leave a review on Trustpilot. Or if you think that Spainguru is a great website, you can also comment it on Trustpilot. There's a button there on the top that redirects you to Trustpilot directly, and it takes only 5 seconds to leave your review. So I don't see any questions here. I really appreciate everyone joining today, and I will send you the recording very, very soon. Thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful week, and stay in touch via email, via Facebook group, and I see you around, hopefully, in other webinars, etc. Bye-bye, and take care.